Welcome to problem number 2 under the guided practice problems of your spring break winter interim packet. Okay, so let's start by reading the problem. The city zoning's department has regulations to determine clear vehicle sight lines called a clear view triangle at all of its intersections as shown below. Here and here. If the measure of angle F is 90 degrees, the measure of angle G is 45 degrees, and FG is 75 feet, what is EG? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go to our process chart to start. The first part is, what are we trying to find? So we need to determine if we're trying to find a side or an angle. So basically the problem will say what it wants. Let's go ahead and highlight what it's actually saying it wants here. It wants us to find EG, which is clearly a side. So let's go ahead and highlight that. So then you think, I have a right triangle, I'm trying to find a side. What are my tools to find the side of a right triangle? And of course we know those are trigonometry and Pythagorean theorem. And another clue would be what information is given, but that's something we'll get to in a subsequent problem. Okay, so the next step is redraw the triangle and label it with all the information from the problem, because sometimes the information is not on the figure. You have to put it on the figure in order to use it. Okay, let me go ahead and grab a marker. Okay, so in this case, the reason I said redraw was because you're going to be taking a computer-based test. Therefore, you're going to have to redraw a simple version of the figure in order to label it and unlock all the secrets it has to offer. Because in geometry, the starting place is a labeled figure, and then the relationships that come out of that. Okay, so here we're not going to have to redraw because clearly I'm doing this on the computer. So I'm going to label with all the information in the figure. In the problem, I see the measure of angle F is 90 degrees. So 90 degrees, it's not labeled, so I'm going to go ahead and put the box in here. Make that a little darker. Okay, so therefore that makes this a right triangle. Moving further, let me cross this off. The measure of angle G is 45 degrees, so let me go ahead and put a 45 in here. Okay, and the measure of FG, which is a side, is 75 feet. So FG, they actually had that one labeled already. So just as a side note, remember whenever you have a 45-degree angle inside of a right triangle, that means the other one has to be 45. Therefore, it automatically is an isosceles triangle. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in. We may not use it, but knowing these two actually makes this a lot easier, because if I know this shortcut, I can use Pythagorean theorem instead of trigonometry in order to solve this. So let me go ahead and do it by Pythagorean theorem, and then we're still going to use trigonometry in case you don't remember that a 45 and a 90 gives you an isosceles right triangle, because you end up with a 45, 45, 90 as far as the angles are concerned. So if you don't recognize that shortcut, there's still a way to solve it, just having the 75 and the 45 that's given in the problem. But let's go ahead and start with the simplest version of this, which is I have two sides because I remember the clue, and I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem. So a squared, the two legs are 75, so 75 squared plus 75 squared equals c squared. The hypotenuse is what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find EG. So I'm going to go ahead and square those. Where's my handy dandy calculator? It's over here. So 75 times 75 is going to give us 5,625. So 5,625. And we're going to have the same thing again. Equals c squared. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and find the sum of that. Let me respect my equation. I'm going to put this sum on the same side, not on the other side, as some of us do. And then I'm going to do this times 2, because it's the same as adding it to itself. And I'm going to end up with 11,250, I believe is what it came out to be. Let me take a look at it again. 11,250. Okay, equal to c squared. In order to get that c by itself, I'm going to have to do the inverse of squaring, which is square rooting. Do it on both sides to keep the equation balanced. And I'm going to end up with, take the square root of this beautiful decimal here. So c is going to be equal to 106 point, I'm going to go ahead and go a couple places, 0660. So 106.0660. Okay. All right. Here it doesn't say where to round to, but we're going to go ahead and to be safe, on the assessment, they'll tell you what to round to on the fill-in responses. But to be safe, we're going to round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so let's go ahead and 100. So that means this will be 106. That's it. Feet. Okay, so now we're going to verify this by actually going through this whole process as if we didn't remember or we don't know the 45, 45, 90 shortcut, which means it's an isosceles right triangle. So if we know one leg, we know the other leg. Let me go ahead and erase this very quickly, because you could have this same situation but without this angle being 45 degrees. Let's go ahead and fill in this information a little darker. So 45 degrees here and the 75 here. That's all we have from the actual problem without the shortcut. Okay, grab a blue marker. And so we're going to go through the process of solving this with trigonometry, because we have one angle in one other angle, I should say, in a right triangle and a side. So we know that that's our cue to tell us that we can use trigonometry. Okay, so what are we trying to find? We're trying to find a side, e.g. Redraw and label the figure with all the information given. Read, we did that. Now let's go ahead and take a look at step 3. Circle the focus angle and label the sides O, A, and H for what they stand for in the parentheses, okay? So opposite, so I'm circling the focus angle. The opposite of this focus angle would be EF. The hypotenuse is obviously across from the right angle, and the adjacent is what's left, or what is next to the focus angle. So we've gotten that one done. Let's go to step 4. Box what you have, circle what you need. What you need may already be circled. And you'll see that on a subsequent problem. If you're looking for the focus angle, you've already circled it in step 2, so you may already have what you need circled. But in this case, we're looking for, e.g., it is not already circled, so I'm going to circle it here, and I'm going to box what I have. I have the adjacent, which is 75 feet. Okay? Okay. So next, we're going to choose a trigonometric function based upon step 4. These two, this box and this circle. So I have A and H, So A and H only can be found in the cosine function. So let me go ahead and cross that off. That's the one we selected. Now we're going to fill in the trigonometric function or ratio. So cosine of the focus angle, which happens to be 45 degrees, is going to be equal to A, which is 75 feet, over H, which is, we're going to put X there. We don't know what it is. Okay. Next step is turn into a proportion and solve. So we're going to turn this into a proportion by putting it over 1, and then we're going to go ahead and solve. So cross multiplying, I get cosine. I'm going to go ahead and move this work over here so I have more space. So cosine of 45 degrees times X. I'm going to put this in parentheses. It's not a cute C, is it? Okay, equal to 75 times 1, which is going to just be 75. Okay, so now we're going to get the X by itself by dividing on both sides by the cosine of 45 degrees. That's going to cancel to be 1. It's actually not going to cancel. Anything divided by itself is 1, so 1x is the same as x, equals to, now let's get our calculator again. We're going to switch to scientific mode. 75, let me move this over, 75 divided by, in parentheses, the cosine of 45. Close the parentheses, equal sign, and we end up with 106.066. And doesn't that look familiar? That's what we got when we did Pythagorean theorem as well. So that's, to the nearest whole number would be 106 feet. is the length of EG. And there you have it. There is our answer. Okay, guys, good luck on that spring packet. Take care.